In this video, we're going to talk about the EFT tapping technique. I'm going to take you through the principles and a basic demonstration of how EFT tapping works, and then also we'll do a round of tapping together, and I will explain to you how you can use this in your own life to create some powerful shifts. So the basic underlying principle of EFT tapping is this: all unresolved emotions that we carry around with us cause blocks in our lives, in various areas of our lives, whether it's emotional blocks, performance blocks, or physical blocks showing up as physical pain. And when we begin to resolve these blocks, or rather when we begin to resolve the unresolved emotion, we also then resolve the blocks. So the blocks go away and we bring more flow and alignment into our lives. Now, the discovery statement of EFT states that the cause of all negative emotions is a disruption in the body's energy system. And the way that these disruptions in the energy system gets resolved is through tapping on the meridians, and this comes from Chinese medicine, acupuncture. So we tap on certain meridian points on the hand and then on the body, and we combine that with cognitive therapy, so talk therapy, where we create certain statements that allows us to tune in energetically and psychologically. It allows us to tune into that issue that we are working with. So research is showing us what happens when we use EFT tapping, and this is quite amazing. Now, to understand that, let's just quickly go back and look at what stress does to the body. So whenever we encounter a stressful situation, when we go into stress, be it through something that we see or something that we think, our body goes into fight or flight response. It goes into fight or flight mode, and that really is the amygdala in the brain setting off the alarm bells, and it floods the body with all kinds of chemicals, including cortisol, and now you are ready to either, fight your way out of there or run away, whatever your preferred choice of action is. And the problem, of course, with modern life is that our stress response gets triggered all the time. We are living in a very stressful environment. Our lifestyles are very stressful. Our way of thinking has become very stressful. The food that we eat puts stress on our body. So we are surrounded by stress. And you can think for yourself that this is causing your body to be in a constant state of stress. Now, what research has shown is when we use EFT, it sends calming signals to the amygdala. So it's actually calming the amygdala down. As a result, it's taking you out of that fight or flight response, and it lowers cortisol levels in the blood. So what I want to do now is explain to you first the process of how the tapping works. Then I'm going to show you the tapping points, and then we'll do a round of tapping together. So the process of tapping is the same no matter what issue it is that you're dealing with. And that goes back to, remember how we said that the cause of all negative emotion is a disruption in the body's energy system. So the energy system gets disrupted regardless of what the issue is, and therefore you can use the same approach regardless of what the issue is. EFT can be used very successfully on all emotional issues, all physical issues, and even on performance issues. So the process is like this. Step 1 is to choose the issue that you want to work with. Now, you can either choose an emotion right now in the moment, or you can work with a memory that still, when you think about it, it still triggers you, it still gives you some emotional response. It can be around a relationship. It doesn't really matter what the issue is that you work with, but what is important is that you have to be specific. So by just working on anxious, let's say you are feeling anxious. If you are just going to work with a statement, I'm feeling anxious, it's very big and it's very unspecific, because we can be anxious about many different things in our lives. So for EFT to really work well, it's better for us to become more specific. So what is it exactly that you are anxious about right now? And if you can nail down the thing that is making you anxious, then you have a better, clearer target to work on. Once you've identified the specific issue that you want to work with, your next step is to measure it on a scale of 0 to 10 in terms of its intensity. And the reason why we want to measure it is so that we've got a benchmark to work against, because we want to have like a before state. So how am I feeling about it right now? And then we do a round of tapping, and then we measure again. Has anything changed? Do I feel the same way? Has my intensity come down? Has my intensity perhaps gone up? The next step is where the actual tapping happens. So in step 3. We're not going to tap right now because I'm just going to explain to you what we do in step 3, and then after I've shown you the tapping points, we will do a round of tapping together. So basically in step 3, what you need to do before you begin to tap is to create a phrase that you can work with. So if you remember the issue that you identified in the beginning in step 1, create a short phrase out of this issue so that it helps you to really hone in and tune into what it is that you're working on. So let's go back to our example of being anxious. And perhaps you are now looking at all of the things in your life that you are feeling anxious about, and the thing that's giving you the most anxiety right now that you want to just take the edge off from, because that's what EFT can help us do, is to take the edge off these uncomfortable emotions, is perhaps you have a meeting tomorrow with a client or a colleague, and you are nervous about the outcome of this meeting. You're nervous about how the meeting is going to go off, and you are just feeling a sense of unease and maybe even a little bit of fear of going into the meeting. So the phrase that you then can create is something like nervous about tomorrow's meeting or afraid of tomorrow's meeting. And you're going to use this phrase in 2 parts. You're going to use it at the very beginning of the tapping sequence, and then you are also going to use it as we tap through the tapping points. And I'll show you just now how we do that. Then, once you've done the complete tapping, we go on to step number 4. And in step number 4, we measure the intensity again. You've done the tapping, and now you measure it to see if there is any change. And one of 3 things is going to happen. The first thing that will happen is, most likely, if you have been specific enough, most likely you'll find that the intensity that you first measured is going to come down. It will come down a couple of points. The other thing that might happen is that there won't be any change at all. And then the third thing that might happen is that your intensity might go up. And this is not a bad thing if your intensity goes up, because it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. It just means that you have uncovered an opportunity for healing. You've uncovered a trigger, which when you work on this trigger, it is actually going to bring immense healing and shifts in your life. So what you will do then is do another round of tapping, or as many rounds as it needs, until you reach an intensity of 0 to 1. We don't want to end up being zombies that don't feel anything, and that's never going to happen with EFT. So you're never going to stop feeling. But what you will end up with is the memories and the things that you might have been concerned about before is not going to have this strong emotional response in you. And as a result, you're also going to find that it's beginning to reprogram the way that you think. It's going to begin to reprogram the way that you relate to the world, because the belief systems that has been created as a result of this type of thinking or this past experience has begun to collapse as a result of working with EFT tapping. Now I want to show you where the tapping points are, and then we'll do a round of tapping together using this example of the meeting that I've created earlier. So the tapping points are as follows. We begin on the side of the hand. This is called the karate chop point, and it is on this fleshy part on the outside of your hand. Now, the thing with EFT, because it works on the body's meridians, and the meridians are mirrored in the body, it doesn't matter whether you tap on your left hand or whether you tap on your right hand. We usually tap, you'll see that as you begin to do it, it starts to become intuitive. But as a beginner, what I can say is we tap anything between 5 to 8 times, and it's just a very gentle tap. And when we begin to tap on the face, we are going to use 2 fingers to tap, because this way we make sure that we really hit all the meridians, all the spots correctly. All right, so first place where we start is on the side of the hand, and we use the big phrase here, the first phrase that we created. And then from here, we're moving from the top of the head down to under the arm in the body. So the next step then, or the next point, is on the top of the head. And for beginners, it's also a good idea. You can use your flat hand and just tap there on the top of your head. This way you'll make sure that you hit the spot. Another way of doing it is if you make a little baby 5 with your hands, with your fingers, and you can then just tap in a little circle. Right, so the next step is the eyebrow point, and this is really where the eyebrow begins. And again, you can use one hand or both hands. It doesn't really matter. If you use both hands, you get 2 for the price of 1, so you can do that. And use the 2 fingers, because this way you make sure that you do hit the spot. From our eyebrow point, we're moving down to the side of the eye, and this is on the bone of the eye socket. So it's not on the corner of the eye, and it's not on the temple. It really is on the outer bone. If you use 2 fingers, you'll pretty much guarantee that you hit the spot. And then from the side of the eye, we're moving to under the eye. Now, this is again on the bone, and you want to be really right underneath the pupil. So not on the side of your face, not on the nose, but underneath the eyes. So you can tap there. From here, we move to under the nose, and it's in this little indent between the nose and the upper lip. You can use 1 finger or 2 fingers. The next one is then the chin point, and that is between the lip and the chin. So again, you have a little indent there, and it's in that little indent. And if you use 2 fingers, you'll be sure to tap that. Next, we move to the collarbone point, and you find the collarbone point by going to this little indent at the bottom of your throat. Move your finger out about 1 inch to the left or to the right, it doesn't matter. I'll do it to the side so I don't tap over my microphone. So about 1 inch to the right, and then about 1 inch down. And again, to make sure that you hit the spot, you can either use a flat hand, or you can use a fist, or you can use a baby 5. And this way, again, you'll make sure that you hit the spot. And then the final point is under the arm. And this is for women, this is in line with in the middle of your bra strap about. And again, if you use your flat hand, you can make sure that you hit the spot there. Let's now do a round of tapping together so that you can see what it looks like in practice. Now, you're always going to use the same format of wording, and it looks like this. Even though, and then you fill in the blank with your issue or your memory or your emotion. I deeply and completely accept myself. So it will always take this format. This is how you start. So let's use our example that we spoke about earlier, and we will say, I'm nervous for tomorrow's meeting. So we set it up. Even though I'm nervous for tomorrow's meeting, I deeply and completely accept myself. And this is then how we tap. Now, as we tap, you repeat the words after me. Or if while we were going through this, you've identified some of your own issues that you would like to work on, you just use your own words. So replace what I say with your own issue. All right, let's tap. Even though I'm nervous for tomorrow's meeting, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I'm nervous for tomorrow's meeting, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I'm nervous for tomorrow's meeting, I deeply and completely accept myself. And now we start tapping, starting from the top of the head, and we will shorten this phrase to nervous for tomorrow's meeting. 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 Take a deep breath in. exhale, and now you go and measure that original intensity again. Let's say that our intensity was a 6 before and now it has come down to a 4. So there's still a little bit of work that we can do there. So we'll do another round of tapping, but now we are adding the word still into all of our phrases. Let me show you what it looks like. Even though I'm still nervous about tomorrow's meeting, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I'm still nervous about tomorrow's meeting, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I'm still nervous about tomorrow's meeting, I deeply and completely accept myself. And now we tap, starting at the top of the head. Still nervous about tomorrow's meeting. 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 So this is then basically how EFT works. It is very, very easy to use. What's important is that you really tune into the negative feeling. Now, there are very different or many different spin-offs of the original EFT as is taught by Gary Craig. And I know that some of these spin-offs also use positive reframes, so they use positive language to tap with. And the way that I've learned it is we want to remove the disruption in the body's energy system. We want to calm down the amygdala. And we do that by really telling the body and the mind and the energy system, this is what we're working on. We're working with this thing that's causing the discomfort and the pain and the unresolved emotion. And the only way that we can do that is by really tuning in to the negative. So yes, we use negative language in EFT because it allows us to go where the issue lies, and in this way we can begin to resolve it. So you can use EFT yourself to work on all kinds of issues, like I said before, and a good way to begin to make EFT part of your healing process and part of the process that you do your personal work, your inner work with, is if you create a list of all of the bothersome memories and all of the bothersome emotions and the things that have happened to you that still trigger you, and the things that are happening to you in your life right now that are triggering you. Make a list out of all of those and then rate them, measure them on a scale of 0 or 1 to 10 in terms of their intensity. And then you begin to tap them down, work one at a time, and you just collapse one issue after the other. Obviously, there are things that we experience in our lives that are, shall we call them big traumas, big T traumas. Now these biggies, it's a good idea to rather work with an EFT practitioner than going there on your own, simply because we can hold the space for you, we can support you, and we can really help you to resolve this and to deal with this in a very painless and effective way. All right, so keep that in mind. So when you do this, don't go for the big heavy stuffs in your life. All right, work on the smaller things first. Say hi to me in the comments. I'd like to hear from you. I'd also like to hear your experience of doing this very short EFT tapping round. If you've enjoyed this video, then please like it and subscribe. If you haven't yet done so, please subscribe to my channel. It really supports me to get the message of healing and transformation out to as many people as possible. And I'd love for you to be part of our community doing that. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video on EFT tapping and that you have a better understanding, or rather that you feel inspired now to use this amazing breakthrough tool to begin to heal some of those issues in your own life. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.